All right, good morning. How's everyone doing? Karibuni sana. Happy new month. Hope everyone is well. Welcome to the Afriforex daily analysis. This first day of October 2024. We're officially in the last quarter of the year. Christmas is around the corner, but really glad that you could join us. Karibuni sana. Good to see lots of familiar names there. Names we always see here each and every morning, of course, in the Zoom meeting, which is good. We're really glad that you could join us. Karibuni sana. For the sake of guys who are joining us for the first time, John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex is a trading unit, like we always say. So it's a group of traders that show people how to go about it on the charts. Unfortunately, we do not trade for people. The best we can do is show you what you can end up doing on the charts and how to go about it. So we're also here with Mitch. So he is working in the back office. So feel free to ask any questions on the Q&A section and also on the chat box. Mitch will be getting back to you. But I will be looking at the questions more specifically in the Q&A section as always towards the very end of this session. So we're going to jump straight into it. We'll start off by looking at the watch list. As always, what we have today in comparison to what we did have yesterday. So you can see right there, Tuesday, the 1st of October, a couple of changes compared to yesterday. So feel free to take note of that. We'll start off by looking at the currency pairs we had yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list this morning. So we do have the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. You can see the three areas that I had pointed out, and also the three regions that I had pointed out where we could have potentially looked for trades, and also areas where we could have managed. So you can see that in the morning, price was somewhere within this region right here. Had pointed out that we're waiting to see if we could get either a breach to the upside of this area or maybe some sort of a pullback somewhere back in, within this region right here. So you can see that the market pulled back. Unfortunately, it didn't come all the way till within here. Seems like there was some sort of an SNR within this region right here, and the market bounced to the upside, came in. Can't see that during the US session, although this was at 3 when the market was down here, but still during the US session much later on, you can see that the market did actually end up attempting to break above this region to the upside, and it had attempted even earlier, during the Asian session, but unfortunately, it's like some sellers were sitting there. And you can see how aggressively they did push the market to the downside. So this one, the only buy that worked was that one, not really the best. Of course, would have expected something more clearer and maybe even expected, the market to make some higher highs and higher lows. But unfortunately, it seems that the US dollar on that one, I think, was really giving some issues. So we also did have the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So for this one yesterday, similar situation, watching out for buys. I did point out that some proper buys possibly could have been somewhere within here. I pointed out that you should not have really been looking for any buys, and the market was high up within that region there. And you can't clearly see why now, because this was clearly a seller's region. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the pullback coming all the way to within this region. And when the pullback came in, look how aggressive the market did actually end up coming in within that region. But nonetheless, it's like the buyers within this region were still able to push the market to the upside. Although these were some very odd hours, don't really think any of us were on the charts at that point in time when that did happen. So also a currency pair that will not be looking to see whether we can trade today. So the next one, this is the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can clearly see the three regions that I had pointed out. And I did point out caution in terms of looking for the sells when the market was down here, and you clearly can't see the reason why. And that's why we always point out that you should wait for a pullback and a hold. And you can see that the market came back in within here, couldn't get a proper hold. Remember, I had even illustrated here, and you can't see that. We wanted to see the market maybe attempt to break to the upside, come back in, hold before we look for the sells. We didn't get that. And that definitely meant that there was no trading opportunity for us on that one within there. Unfortunately, we didn't get anything there, neither did we get anything within this region. And the buyers have continued to push the market to the upside. So also a currency pair that's not going to be on our watch list for today. So last but not least, for review, we do have the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday, we're also trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. Can't see that in the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region. So at around 9:10, wasn't a good time to look for the sells. We wanted to see hopefully we could have gotten something here. The bars went up, though they went up quite aggressive. The sellers came down. If you did attempt any sales within here, even if you put your stops there, I mean, this one is an acceptable loss because the market did actually end up pushing to the downside. There was some sort of a hold. It's just that the sellers just didn't really quite show up. And possibly could have been also something to do with some news events that came out yesterday for the US. So possibly when that time came in, maybe that's the reason why the market was fooling around within here. But definitely you can't see that once the market broke to the upside, came back in, it couldn't just come back into the downside of this region right here. So unfortunately for us on this one, the sales didn't really work. And of course, moving into today, not really a currency pair that we will be trying to see whether we can get any trading opportunities. So we're going to look at a couple of screenshots that we did end up getting. So we'll start off with this one from Bravin. So shout out to you, Bravin. So this is on silver. Can see that you got a couple of cells within here, I think 2 or so. Stop loss somewhere within that region there. Market came down. Hopefully you did watch out for this region right here, but at least you did get the sell on the pullback, which was good. But not too worried about how you managed and how things ended for you, Bravin. I definitely know that you do know what you're doing on the chat. So shout out to you for that and keep up the good work. So we also did get some screenshots from Dan Bickett as well. If you're here, shout out to you. So this is on the NAS 100. So you can see that you got a buying opportunity down here, quite a sniper entry. And I can't see stop loss already above your point of entry when the market side to move to the upside or move in your favor. Can't see that you're targeting somewhere within this region right here. So this was good, quite an aggressive entry, especially considering how the sellers had come in within that region there. But good to see that you got the market on the turnaround. So not a bad entry, but of course I know that you are a sniper, so you definitely know what you're doing on the charts. And you also did get the US 30. Similar situation. Sellers came down quite aggressive. You got the buy somewhere within this region. Market side to move to the upside. Stop loss already above point of entry, which is good. Can't see some areas where you had the SNRs, maybe something similar to the levels we had, but I can't see that you take profit or somewhere within this region. So shout out to you for that, Dan Bickett, and of course, keep up the good work. So we also did get a screenshot from George Schengen. If you're here, shout out to you as well. So this is on gold. So I can't see you got a sell right at the top, somewhere within that region there, market coming down. Maybe I think this one seems like it was earlier today, just looking at the date and the time there. So early morning, prices coming down. This on the 5-minute time frame. So it seems like it's a major and a massive move, but on the 5 minute, nonetheless, I mean, you're following the story on this time frame. So this is good. Good to see you got the sales within a good region. Stop loss already below your point of entry, which is good. And I can see that you're just targeting somewhere within here. Definitely a region where you could possibly end up encountering some issues with the buyers who are sitting there. So this is good. In terms of entry, money management, and where you're targeting, that's some really good trading. So shout out to you for that, George, Dan Bickett, and Bravid for that. So keep up the good work. We're always happy to see your screenshots here. Remember, guys, if you do get any trades, feel free to send them in to us. These guys are more than happy to give you a shout out and to also see what you guys are up to. It also does end up encouraging us. Remember, we are doing this free of charge. So in as much as it's free, at least you can also end up supporting us, but at least showing us that at least the information that we're giving you is getting to you loud and clear. So shout out to everyone. But of course, remember, you can also send in your screenshots via WhatsApp. Our contact details should be there on the chat box. So shifting gears into matters today. So the 1st of October, for guys who've just checked in a bit late, this is what our watch list is going to be looking like. So feel free to take note of that. So we're going to be mixing and matching up the Canadian dollar pairs, or the Canadian dollar with everything on the buy side, the euro, then the Great British Pound with everything on the buy side. On the fundamental front today, if we just look at what has already happened, we've already had a couple of news events that have come out. For the Australian dollar, the Japanese yen, and the New Zealand dollar, we've already factored that in to our analysis this morning. We do have more news events that are going to be coming out. You can see some PMIs for the CHF. So could expect some good moves on that. Have a couple of euros, as you can see, some GBP. So I guess during the London session, we will end up having some good activity. And you can see that during the US session, quite a number of 3 stars that you can see. So And you can see that it's the PMIs. So possibly also we could get some good moves on the USDs today as well. So I guess it's going to be a good day on the charts. Hopefully we'll have some good volatility to move things. So let's start off with the card pairs. So we'll start off with the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, also a currency pair we had yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out: aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. In the morning when I was looking at the charts, price was here. And I did point out that at least if we did get the market maybe coming in somewhere as close as possible within here, we could have looked for the buys. But you did need to manage your trade within this region right here. You can see how fast the market turned around here. It's something similar to what we saw on the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So you can't see within this region, the sellers really pushed the market to the downside quite aggressively, but at least within 433, you can't see that the market was backing within here. I mean, even if your timing was not that great, but at least you watched out for the times, like we keep on repeating. Where is the market? During the market opening times, London, the US, the New York Stock Exchange, because you can't see that at 10, price was up within a seller's region, but at least at 3, 4, it was back in within a buyer's region. So at least even if you did attempt buys at that time, you would have at least made something. So for this one for today, the levels are more or less the same. Although the USDs, I think yesterday were giving issues because you can see the pullback that's happened on this one. You saw the same on the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar, the Australian dollar against the US dollar, and also the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So hopefully today we could possibly end up getting the cards and the USDs possibly moving the other way. So let's see, because there's some correlation happening on the USDs and the cards. So let's see what happens on this one. Hopefully the market does end up turning around. But ideally, what you should be watching out for is if we can get a breach of this region to the upside, don't really look for the sells within this region here. Try and see if either the market could break to the upside, pull back in within here, and possibly end up going up. If not, then ideally we could get the market maybe coming back in within this region. Maybe it might need these buyers to possibly end up lending a helping hand in terms of moving the markets to the upside. So let's see what happens. But in terms of looking for the buys, right now is not really a good time. Wait and see what happens. Either one of those two scenarios right there. Remember the red SNR at the bottom? If the market breaks and holds beneath that region to the downside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us unless the market comes back into the upside of that region. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So this is also a currency pair we had yesterday. We wanted to see whether we could get buys. There was a lot of inactivity on this one because you can see that the market was just holding within here. We're expecting maybe to get the market pulling back in somewhere as close as possible within this region to get some buys. But you can see that the market came back in within here. And this was at around 9 p.m., 10. Not really a time you'd be looking for trades. Couldn't get a proper pullback. And you can see that right now the market is still holding within this region right here. So it's either one of two things. Either we get the market breaking to the upside, then we get some sort of a pullback coming in. And hopefully if the market is back here, maybe at 3 after it goes to the upside, we always want to let the big boys, do the heavy lifting. Don't try and help them in terms of breaking levels. Let them do the breaking, wait for the pullback. If you do that, your trading is going to be much, much better. So let's see what happens. If the London big boys can break, then hopefully the pullback does end up happening still. Then maybe 430, 430, possibly if we find the market here, we could look for those buys within there. If not, we're still watching out for this region right here. Reason being, if you look at how the buyers have reacted, especially when the market even came back in within this region here, it doesn't seem like the big buyers were in as much as they're showing up within here. But remember that this is a dangerous area in terms of looking for the buys, especially when the market is holding to the downside. So maybe the big boys, before they actually end up coming in like so, possibly will need to end up inciting some sellers, and you could find that maybe the market will possibly still need to breach beneath this region. And if that happens, then at least that will put the price squarely back within this region, right? And you could find that maybe 3, 430, if the price is back there, then we could get some proper buying opportunities. So do watch out for that. Remember the bottom SNR, also a region where the market can possibly end up coming back till. So if it does, then at least you should be watching out for that as well. but remembering that it's a last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our buys. So moving on into the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. Clearly can't see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, price was here, and you can't see an illustration of what I was expecting to see, before I actually end up executing some sales. Unfortunately, the market broke to the upside. And this is the reason why we always keep on pointing out, don't be trigger happy. When you see the market break to the downside and you immediately start jumping in on sales before you get the confirmation, you can clearly see that the market broke within this area. And based on the illustration that I had put in here, we actually wanted to see the market probe to the upside, not to the downside. So you can see that this one probed to the downside and the market went up. So you can imagine all the guys who actually hit the sell at the bottom right there. I don't think they are very amused. And maybe to even add fuel to the fire, you actually end up removing your stop loss, thinking that this thing is not going to go up forever. Lo and behold, you can clearly see where the market is right now. So for this one, unfortunately, the sales yesterday didn't happen. It's also maybe something to do with the yens. They are pulling back. We're still watching out to see whether we could get sales, of course, based on the fundamentals, but also based on the technical aspect on the bigger time frame. This seems like pullbacks that are coming in maybe to incite the opposite party to come in, but generally you can't see that it also could be pulling back in within strategic levels. But since we don't really know how far the pullback could end up going, we're still basing it based on the story that we have. And that's the reason why we still have this region right here. So as far as we're concerned for this one, especially considering the fact that it's broken, the high of yesterday, the US session of the day before, which was Friday rather. So for this one, the best thing is to actually just wait and see if we can get the market coming back in to the downside of this region. If it does, maybe these sellers are just looking for those good prices. If the market comes back in within here, then I think at that point in time, we could be game in terms of looking for the sales. But right now, there's nothing really much we can end up doing. If you're going to be chasing buys, then you better have a good reason as to why you're looking for those buying opportunities. But as far as we're concerned, we're just going to be waiting to see whether we can get those sellers coming in and possibly resume, with the sales. But for as long as price is holding above there, unfortunately, there will be no trade for us. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, also a kind of pair we had yesterday, trying to see whether we could have gotten some sales. You can clearly see the three regions that I had pointed out, the exact same areas that we will be having today. The story hasn't changed. So yesterday morning price was here. We wanted to see the market come back in within here, maybe get some big sellers. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the big sellers coming in and a proper hold. You can't see the market broke to the upside, but held to the upside. So this one is similar to the US dollar against the Swiss franc to some extent. So for this one, for today, unfortunately, we couldn't get the sales happening yesterday. So let's see what happens today. You can see that the buyers are still fighting, but at least they've pushed back in within a region where we do have sellers. We just need to see the slowdown of the buyers within here. Maybe they might even end up attempting to break to the upside. If they do, and they are unsuccessful, and the market comes back into the downside at that point in time, hopefully maybe we could get some proper sales within this region right here to calm down. Maybe even due to that last spike, that might end up happening there. That might be good, at least in terms of maybe even for the market to actually calm down and maybe even challenge this region right here. But you will still need to manage your trade within this region right here. But also remember, in case the market breaks and holds above that red SNR, just like we saw on, like the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen, then unfortunately at that point in time, there will be no trade for us unless the market comes back into the downside of that red SNR. So last but not least, for the card pairs, we do have the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, new entrant on our watch list, we will be trying to see whether we can get some buys. So hopefully you can end up taking note of those three areas right there. Right now we have the pullback coming in, which is okay. Let's see what happens. Hopefully we can get these sellers slowing down, within this region right here, at least something we can end up reading. They might even end up coming down to challenge those buyers within that region there. And hopefully we could get the market turning around or turning off at least somewhere within here. This is generally at least a much better area in terms of looking for the buys. So just watch out for that. And of course, remember to watch out for the region at the top. Definitely will need to manage within that area because you can't see that even yesterday, the bars really took off from within this area quite aggressively. But somewhere within this region, you can see that the sellers were still able to shut them down. So don't just think that your buy will actually just end up breaking through this region to the upside. If it does, well and good, but at least you should be ready in terms of managing your trade within that area. So also watch out for this region at the bottom, also a region where you could find the market coming in. I mean, if the big boys do need that price, then at least we should also be ready for that. So that's pretty much it in terms of the card pairs. So we're going to move on to the euro pairs. And we're going to mix and match up the euro with everything on the buy side. So we'll start off with the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, currency pair we had yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. You can't clearly see the three regions that I had pointed out yesterday. And in the morning, price was here. I had pointed out that we were waiting to see what was going to happen within this region here. Unfortunately, we didn't get anything. And you can see that the bars really pushed the market to the upside. Then after that, broke to the upside, held above that, then eventually came back in quite aggressively. And this was, I think, just before the New York Stock Exchange opened. Quite an aggressive push to the downside. Unless you're possibly reading this on a smaller time frame, you can see how difficult it could have been to actually end up getting that sell to come down. But at least we knew the sells were possibly going to work off that area coming down. Consider the sells challenge that region, then the market once again bounced off this region to the upside to come back in within this area. So this one has more or less done a full cycle, from down going up, and it's back in within that region at the top there to challenge those sellers. But let's wait and see. We can get, hopefully, something to tell us to look for the sells within here. But at least you want to get your sells as close as possible within here. And hopefully these buyers stop showing the aggression, that they're showing, because this is quite aggressive. Hopefully if they do start to slow down, within this region here, then at least that would be good. And if the sellers can actually, push the market to the downside, then maybe we could possibly end up getting a similar push. But also be aware, I mean, you don't really know how far this spike could go, based on how far the buyers might still end up pushing and attempting to really take out the sellers who are sitting here. But generally, at least we do have an idea that we do have sellers who are sitting within here. So let's just wait and see what happens. Remember, in case the market breaks and holds above this red SNR to the upside, then unfortunately, at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. But it seems like the market is starting to get into some sort of a range, which means that, I mean, even if you end up getting the sells, somewhere within this region right here, you definitely could target maybe somewhere down within this region right here. It's not guaranteed, that the market will end up getting within there. But I mean, just based on the structure and, we're just dealing with the facts based on what we can read. It's not like we're just imagining things out of nowhere. Ideally, the bottom of the range or down there should ideally be, your target region, but just making sure that you do manage your trade, even as it does end up moving in your favor. So moving on into the next one. This is the euro against the Australian dollar. So this one, also a currency pair we had yesterday. We're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. So you can clearly see the three regions I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. So at around 9:10, price was within this area. Remember, I pointed out it was a horrible idea to look for selling opportunities when the market was down here. It's very clear right now. Hindsight is always 2020. You can clearly see that within this region, the market really bounced off to the upside, came in, broke within this region, something almost similar to what we've seen on the euro against the New Zealand dollar. But when the market came back into the downside, unfortunately, there wasn't that last hold that, we always talk about, maybe unless you're reading it on a smaller time frame, but we did know that maybe sales were going to work off that region right there. So for this one, for today, we're still going to be watching out to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. Hopefully, the fundamentals that will be coming out in a bit will end up supporting our bid. So let's see what happens. Watch out for those three areas right there. The market seems to be holding beneath this region to the downside. But remember, like we always point out, this type of breaches are not really the best, considering the fact that, I mean, even if you get the sell there, you'll definitely will still need to end up watching out for this area. It's not too bad because it's 25 pips. So maybe unless you're reading it on a smaller time frame to get some proper risk to reward. Because I mean, if you're not going to be getting anything more than a 1:2, even from here coming down, then it's not really worth it. Hopefully, this market maybe breaks beneath this region to the downside, then at that point in time, you could possibly find that maybe some proper sells could actually end up working off here, because at that point in time, we'll definitely have more room to actually end up moving to the downside. So here could be a bit of a tricky situation. The best scenario, personally, the trade I would definitely want to see is if the market can still come back in within here, because there's a possibility it can. Reason being, when the market was holding within this area yesterday to the upside, this was definitely an SNR. And I mean, we had pointed out that region, right? So when the market broke to the downside, there was not a pullback or a retest that came in within there. So for that reason, there's still a possibility price can actually come back in within this area. And I mean, if you are to follow my advice, I would best advise that if the market does come back in within there, be ready to possibly end up getting some good selling opportunities. I think the best sells would actually be hiding somewhere within this region right here. These ones will just actually end up frustrating you. Maybe unless if the market breaks free of this region to the downside, but any sells within here, you might end up signing up for some character development. So do watch out also for the region at the top. I mean, you could find the pullback coming in all the way till that region. If it does, then at least we should also be ready for it. So the next one, this is the euro against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some sells. Here you can see the three regions that I had pointed out, and also some illustrations of what we're expecting, but similar situation with what we've seen with the rest of the yens. They pulled back. Unfortunately, there were no sellers yesterday after they showed up during the Asian session. Then after that, it's like they disappeared for the rest of the day. So you can see that, unfortunately, the market couldn't hold within there, came back in within here, broke to the upside. Nothing to tell us to look for sales, tapped back in within there, some sort of a slowdown. It's like they were starting to possibly try and come in, but we just couldn't get anything. I mean, even if you got the sell from there coming down, that was it. I mean, it wasn't something like, would have expected to see. So for this one, for today, we're still going to be watching out for sells. Although this one, we have adjusted the areas accordingly, of course, based on what the technicals are telling us, based on the read on the bigger time frame. Let's see if we'll get some sellers coming in from within here. The buyers are still coming in quite aggressive. And you can see that they started off quite aggressive off this area right here. They're slowing down in terms of their pushes, but remember, it's always two-sided. We need to see the buyers slow down, and we also need to see the big sellers coming in. If the buyers slow down, but the sellers don't come in, this market could actually continue to move to the upside, even if not in a very aggressive manner, but you could still find it making higher highs and higher lows. So within this region, we're really keen to see what does end up happening. Remember, there's always some good correlation that happens amongst the yen pairs. Right now, you're seeing that all of them are on the pullback phase. When you see one of them possibly turning and the big boys coming in, try and see what's happening on the others. And at least that could give you a bit more confidence before you actually jump in on your trade, or at least just to give you more perspective before you jump in on your trade. So for this one, there's a possibility the market could break to the upside. If it does, it's okay. In any case, we already have a plan. We know that if the market breaks above this region to the upside, then this currency pair is definitely off our case. So let's really wait and see what happens. If we get something like that, we could attempt sells, calm down, watch out for this region there, and definitely that region at the bottom right there, also a region where you could manage your trades. The mid-level, if you're really good at trading, you possibly even could end up adding in a trade or two. So moving on into the next one, this is the euro against the Swiss franc. So this is also a currency pair we had yesterday. So for this one, we're trying to see whether we could get some sells. You can clearly see the three regions that I had pointed out, and also what to expect. I did point out that maybe looking for the sells down here would have been good, or maybe somewhere within here, if we did get something like this, we did get that. So that meant that there was no trade for us. The market took off with the upside, came back in all the way till within this region. Seems like there was an SNR somewhere within this region right here, where you can see that the market came in, started to do some sort of a slowdown. Had actually thought of actually jumping in on a trade somewhere within here, but on second thought I didn't. But it definitely seemed that it did actually end up working, coming down. It was at around just before 4:30 or thereabout. The market did come down, but you can see that within this region, the sellers just slowed down. I was waiting to see if I could have gotten a breach to the downside of this area, maybe now to jump in on the sell. It seems that the sellers really ran out of steam. Within this area, you can see that the market really struggled within this area, and moving into the Asian session was still more or less holding just within this area. So let's see if maybe the market does end up needing a better price. There's a possibility price will possibly end up coming back in within this region right here. Maybe for the buyers to actually end up coming in fast inside, the sellers to possibly end up coming in. Because if you look at the reaction that we had yesterday, maybe it's because the market didn't quite tap into that region properly. So there's a possibility you could find that maybe today, if that happens, maybe that's when these sellers will possibly end up coming alive. So let's just wait and see what happens. But also remember, I mean, if that doesn't end up happening, we could have a similar situation with what we were expecting yesterday, whereby the market breaks to the downside, but you will need to get that confirmation that the market is holding to the downside. Otherwise, if you jump in on a sell, especially once the market does this, then you could easily end up signing up for trouble. So just make sure that you're sure that those are the big sellers who are showing up within that area right there. So let's see what happens. Remember the red SNR at the top. Like we pointed out, at least by now, I know even the guys who are new, you do know that the red SNR defines, how much is too much in terms of either looking for buys or sells. Otherwise, if we don't have that, we could easily end up fighting with the markets the whole day. And I mean, when you fight with the markets, you will always be on the losing end. So last but not least, we do have the euro against the US dollar. So for this one, new entrant on our watch list, we'll be trying to see whether we can get some sells. Can clearly see the three regions right there that we're going to be watching out for. Let's see if we can get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within this region here. If we do, then hopefully we could end up looking for the sells, proper sells, at least somewhere within here. You can see there's an SNR that's formed within this region right here. Could also be a trap by the big boys. I mean, they have formed this level here. Guys are chasing sells. Everyone thinks SNR is holding, resistance is holding. They are hitting their sells there. But I don't quite think they're aware of what they're signing up for. So you could easily find the market spiking to the upside. Maybe it will need to come back in and challenge this seller right here before the sellers do actually end up showing up. So watch out for that. But also remember the region at the top. It's an area of interest. Also considering the fact that the market has turned into some sort of a range, but through SNR could be somewhere within this region. I mean, the best selling opportunities would definitely be somewhere within that region there. So you could find that maybe the market might even come up during the London session, tap that region, maybe 3-430, we could be then at least that sell coming down will definitely give us more room to play with to the downside. So just make sure that you watch out for that. And as always, make sure that you do trade with a stop loss and stick within your risk parameters at all times. So we're going to move on to the GBP pairs now and do the same. So we'll start off with the Great British Pound against the New Zealand dollar. So this is also a currency pair we had yesterday. And we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was here. I did point out that it wasn't a good time to look for the selling opportunities. The market did push to the upside quite aggressively off this area right here, came in. Consider the market side to slow down within there. But at least we did know the sells were going to work off there. It's just that now grabbing the sell was a bit hard. And you can see that the market just pushed to the downside of that area there. Fortunately, that one did end up leaving us, but you can see that the market somehow pulled back in within this area, not all the way quite within that area before coming down. So sometimes you know what, or have an idea of what the market is going to do. But, like I pointed out here before, knowing what the market is going to do and actually getting the trades are two different things. Because sometimes, especially when you're very disciplined in terms of you need to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things before you actually jump in on a trade. And the market doesn't give you that. And as much as you see it moving down, you just can't get it. So I actually saw this move coming down, but it was actually hard to actually get it. Hopefully today we can get something we can read. So you can see these three areas that we do have for today. We've adjusted them. The market has spiked to the upside, calmed down, which is good. Definitely gotten maybe some better prices higher than this. Also incited, some buyers to possibly start jumping in on the buys within there going up. So let's see what does end up happening. Hopefully we can get the market holding within this region here. We possibly could end up getting some selling opportunities to come down. So just watch out for this region here and also somewhere within that area right there. But of course, in case the market breaks above that red SNR to the upside, then unfortunately, there will be no trade for us. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Australian dollar. So this is also a currency pair we had yesterday. We're watching out for sells. Can't clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out, an illustration of what to expect. I did point out that it wasn't also a good time to look for the sells within here. You clearly can't see why. The buyers were here. They did come up aggressive. And of course, when the price was down here, you would not have thought that price would have come back in within this region. And that's the reason why, we keep on pointing out anything is possible when it comes to effects. So price came back in within there just before the US session. You can see that the buyers really pushed hard, but unfortunately, we couldn't get anything within that region. The sellers came down. Price came back in within this region on the pullback, and you can see that it held there only during the Asian session and it's come back in. So the market has done a full cycle. Yesterday morning, when we're looking at it, it was down here. It's gone all the way up, and right now it's still back in within here. So the plan is still exactly the same as what we did end up having yesterday. So let's see what happens today of these areas right here. Hopefully we can get something we can end up reading, but the plan is exactly what we were watching out for. So it's either the market breaks to the downside of this region, comes down, or maybe comes back in within here. So it's exactly the same as what we did end up having yesterday. So hopefully you've taken note of that. Remember the red SNR at the top. That's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our last ditch selling opportunities. So moving on into the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we were trying to also see whether we could have gotten some sells. And you clearly can't see the three areas that I had pointed out, but a similar situation with the rest of the yens. So you can't see that in the morning price was here. I did point out we did need to see that pullback, maybe an attempt to go up, come down, hold, then look for the sells. That didn't happen there. Somewhere within here, we did want to see the big sellers show up. You can see that the market just came, held within here, but there were no sellers. If you really look at what was going on here, there were no big sellers within there. And the market broke to the upside and actually held above that area and pushed itself to the upside. Came in here, still nothing. Like there were no sellers to be seen yesterday on this one, as well as what we've seen, on the rest of the yens. So for today, let's see if we will get some sellers coming in. Maybe the yen possibly getting some strength. Maybe this could be some pullbacks coming in, maybe to incite the opposite party to come in. But you can see the massive push that came down. Maybe the market did actually need to come back and retest these levels right here, after it pushed itself to the downside. So there's a possibility these sellers will come in again. We're just not sure when. The big boys don't really tell you what they're up to. So it's up to you to try and figure things out. So we're just trying to figure things out, but we know that possibly they will be coming back. We just don't know when and where, but we have an idea. Maybe it could be somewhere within here, but in case the market breaks and holds above this region to the upside, then unfortunately, at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. So the next GBP pair, this is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. Also a currency pair we did have yesterday, trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. Unfortunately, there were no selling opportunities. These are the three areas I had pointed out. Price was somewhere within here. I did point out that maybe we did get the market attempting to break to the upside and come back, and we could have looked for the sells. And as much as this was a seller's region, but the reason why I had pointed this out is because we did need to see the big sellers come in. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. And as much as, let's say you got the sells within here, unfortunately, you'd have been stopped out because the big sellers, like I keep on pointing out, they were not there. Remember, you can't move the market by yourself. When the market came in within here, there was a slowdown of the buyers within this region right here. The sellers showed up. The market did seem like it was holding to the downside, but I guess these buyers had really stepped up within this region quite aggressive. And you can see that the sellers really struggled to push the market to the downside. So for this one, the bias is still to try see whether we can get some sells. We could possibly get some movement happening on this one a bit later on. Remember, we have some GBP, some CHF news that's coming out during the London session. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Maybe the market could be going up, but don't disregard what's going on, even if it goes to the upside. If it comes back in to the downside, let's see how far this goes. If it comes back in to the downside of this area quite aggressively and the market holds within here, maybe we could actually end up getting that sell actually taking place. So we just need to wait. But remember the red SNR, I mean, if we break and hold above that region to the upside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us on the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So last but not least, for the currency pairs, we have the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So this one is a new entrant on our watch list. And we will be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. We look at the market structure, it's some sort of a range, which clearly tells you that the best selling opportunities are high up within that region. If you can get that price, if the buyers can actually push the market back in within here, could get some good sales, come down with the market till within here, but we also do have this region right here that you can also watch out for. It's also not a bad day in terms of looking for the sales. Could get some decent amount of pips, coming down off this area right here, coming down 30 or so. So, I mean, if you end up being good at trading, even if you get a stop loss of 10, depending on what happens within here, you can easily get a 1:3 within this region. But of course, the higher, the better. If you actually end up getting the sales higher up, coming down, we're looking at nearly double what you'd actually end up getting coming down within this region. So let's see what happens. So the best sales are definitely here. Second best sales are here. Now, if the market breaks to the downside of this region right here, and we clearly get a breach of structure, and we need a nice strong breach to the downside and a nice pullback, then at that point in time, you could possibly end up looking for your sales. But don't be too quick to look for sales, especially if the market just breaks and holds within here. You can see that the market has been here a number of times, but the buyers have not given up within this region. So it's until the market really breaks free of this region to the downside on the pullback, that's when you can look for the sales. Don't look for the sales if the market just breaks and holds within here. You could actually end up going head on, with the buyers who are sitting within this region, and you could easily find yourself getting taken all the way till the top of the range. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of all the currency pairs. So hopefully you've taken note of the levels and everything we've discussed in between. So we're going to be moving on to the indices and the commodities. You can see that there's only one change. Gold has moved to the sell side. The rest still remain to the on the buy side, but it's still also a tricky situation for some of them because they're more or less on the borderline. So let's start off by looking at the NAS 100. So for this one yesterday, the bus was to try and see whether we could have gotten some buys. Clearly can't see the three regions that I had pointed out. In the morning, price was here, and I pointed out that maybe you could find the market spiking, within this region right here. We did end up coming back in and hold. Could have looked for the buys. Can't see that maybe at around 4:30, the market did come down. Buyers attempted to come up, came back in within that region. Unfortunately, they just came shy of that area there. Then you can't see that the market came down. This was much later on, still broke to the upside, but still came back in. So this is a probe, another massive probe within that region there, which tells us that the buyers are possibly still sitting somewhere within this region. So for this one, for as long as we're holding above the red SNR, the buyers should be to look for those buying opportunities. So do watch out for the same areas that we did end up having yesterday. There is no change. I mean, price has not really broken any level. So, I mean, we're still being contained within the same region. So right now, we just need to see if we can get the market breaking above this region to the upside. Can see that on the pullback, the market did actually end up attempting to break to the downside of this area right here, which is good, but it's not yet fully confirmed because we haven't seen the market actually hold to the upside. It could easily end up holding within here. And if it does, then that means that price could easily come back in within this region here. And you could find that maybe at 4:30, especially if price is back in within here, then you could find the proper sales. I mean, the proper buys happening off this area right here. So just watch out for that. But at least you can see that the buyers did step in or step up within this region quite aggressively, some sort of a range. Hopefully, if the market breaks to the upside, then at least we could possibly get these buyers running or pushing the market all the way to the top, somewhere within this region right here. So watch out for that. But remember, when it comes to the indices and the commodities, we're fully technical. For as long as we're holding above the red SNR, then the buyers should be to look for buys. If we break to the downside and actually hold below, then we could start to look for ourselves. So the next one, this is the the US 30. So for this one, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys yesterday. These are the three areas that I had pointed out and also an illustration of what to expect. Wanted to see if the market could have broken to the downside, come back in and actually held before we look for the buys, just to activate those buyers within this region. You can see that the market just fooled around within this region. There was nothing. The market came down, quite aggressively, came back up. Fortunately, we couldn't get a hold, and you can see that the market even attempted to come down lower before coming back up. So for this one, we've just done some minor adjustments to the levels. Reason being, if you look at it on the 1 hour time frame, and I'll be showing you that in a bit, but feel free to take note of these levels right here that we're watching out for. If you look at the story of what's happening on the 1 hour time frame, what you will end up realizing is that the buyers are still holding somewhere within this region right here, which means that even if, let's say, we were to keep the levels where they were yesterday and we say that we look for sells, you could easily end up coming into a head-on collision with these buyers who are sitting somewhere within here. So at least if we do break free of this area to the downside, then at least at that point in time, I think maybe you could now find the sales happening. But if you look at how the buyers reacted off that area here, it tells you that these buyers are still alive and they're still kicking. So for that reason, that's why we've done that adjustment, just to make sure that we're looking at the correct thing. And of course, also making adjustments, on the conservative and the semi-aggressive conservative region there. So right now, the market is backing within here. There's definitely an SNR within this area. So the best thing is to actually wait. If we can get a breach and a hold to the upside, hopefully we could get these buyers showing up and you could find them maybe pushing the market all the way back in within this region. So true SNR, maybe to some extent could be here. This one is also a bit tricky considering the fact that we've also not been here like ever. So it's almost a similar situation like what we're having on gold. So getting those levels is a bit challenging. It's not impossible, but it's a bit challenging. And that's the reason why you're saying we have to end up doing some adjustments to the levels just to make sure that we're doing the correct thing based on what the story of price is telling us within here. So this is what the story is going to be looking like. But also remember, price can pull back in within this region. If it does, then you possibly could find that could get some proper buying opportunities somewhere within this region right here, maybe on the pullback that the market broke to the upside. So just make sure that you also do have that in mind. So moving on into silver. Now, for silver yesterday, the buyers was to try and see whether we could have gotten some buys. Clearly can't see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the price was somewhere within this region right here. I did point out that we're expecting maybe to get the market breaking to the upside and holding before we look for the buys. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The market came back in within this region here. And you can see that the sellers stepped in within this region quite aggressive. The buyers really struggled. In as much as the market was somewhere within here at around 430, but the buyers really struggled to push the market to the upside. The market seemed like it broke to the downside, even on the pullback, somehow holding. But you can see that today during the Asian session, the market has come back in. And for that reason, that's a reason why we do still have the same levels that we were watching out for yesterday. So for this one, in as much as the buys yesterday were not really working, we'll have to wait and see what does end up happening today. I think Bravin did end up getting a selling opportunity on this one, which was okay. And at least also well managed, somewhere within this region right here. But you can see that the market has really struggled to break free of this area. This could be some sort of an incitement of the opposite party. If you look at the story of what's happening on the bigger time frame, the buyers had gone up. This was last week on Tuesday. The market slowed down within this region right here. The pullback came in. We're expecting price to come back in within this region, but it's like the market just tapped back in within this buyer's region, exactly where the buyers had actually started the move going to the upside. So let's see what happens on this one. The levels are exactly the same as what we're watching out for, but remember, pullbacks are very important. The way the buyers are moving up is not really the best. And also considering the fact that we do have this minor SNR within here, don't look for the buying opportunities just yet. Give the sellers the benefit of doubt. You can see how they reacted yesterday. You're not quite sure what they're going to be up to. But at least if we do get a reaction that's lower, than what happened yesterday, and the market comes back in within there, maybe you could find that maybe today, maybe at around 3, similar situation to where the market was yesterday. Maybe today we could actually end up getting the market moving to the upside, unlike what happened yesterday. So watch out for that. Also remember the other two SNRs, definitely regions you can watch out in terms of managing your trades. And also if you're really good at trading, also areas where you could possibly also end up scaling up or scaling in rather. So last but not least, we do have gold. Now for gold, yesterday the buyers was to try to see whether we could get buys. But that remained for as long as we're holding above this region to the upside. Remember that gold yesterday was in a tricky situation, considering the fact that the day before, or Friday rather, the market had broken to the downside, came back. It seemed like it was holding to the upside of this area, but we wanted to see more within this region. So when the market pulled back in, we were really expecting to see if we could get the buyers really coming in within this area right here before we could possibly end up looking for the buys. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The market broke to the downside and held, and you can't see that it decided to move away off that region to the downside. And at that point in time, that was a confirmation that we're no longer going to be looking to see whether we could get some buying opportunities on gold. So for this one, for as long as we're holding below the red SNR, we will be trying to see whether we can get some sales. The market has pulled back in within this region right here. Let's wait and see if we can get, some sellers coming in within this area right here, especially if we do see the big sellers, the market holding within this area. Maybe we could get some selling opportunities. If not, and the market, breaks and actually holds to the upside, maybe even some attempts to break to the downside, which are unsuccessful, then I guess at that point in time, we could get the market coming back in all the way till within this region at the top. But remember, if the market can still come back in within here and you still could find the sales happening, it's just a matter of the market actually needs to break and hold above this region right here for us to look for the buys. You still can end up looking for the buys, but just having it at the back of your mind that, for as long as we're holding below the red SNR, the buying opportunities are counters. So you also can end up just taking a buy here and just target up here. The sellers can easily end up coming in at any given point in time because they are in control. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Personally, I don't really like, let me put it that way, I don't really like when gold and silver are on opposite ends. When they're on the same side, it actually ends up making things a bit more easy and you have that confidence. But when one is on the sell side, one is on the buy side, remember they all have their own independent stories. But at some point, you find that one ends up following the other. So we're not too sure whether gold will end up following silver and end up moving to the buy side, or silver is actually going to end up following gold. We'll just have to end up waiting to see. But ideally, no matter what you do, as long as you always trade with a stop loss, you should always be fine. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of everything. Hopefully the charts will be kind to us today and we will get some good opportunities. So I guess we can look at the Q&A section to see what guys are saying. So I see Alan Rono there saying, hi, John, thanks a lot. Karibu sana, Alan. Always good to see you here. And I'm not seeing any more questions, which is perfectly fine. So I guess everything is clear. In case it's not, remember you can rewatch this broadcast on our YouTube channel, can speed things up or slow things down, can rewind as many times as possible, maybe trying to get some things that you possibly missed out on. So feel free to do that. And when you're there, also remember to like and subscribe. And I know that since there are many guys also watching on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe. That does also end up helping our channel. So I see Daniel Simil there, aka Dan Bicket. You're saying, thank you, Afriforex team. Karibu sana. Good to see you here. And also shout out to you for your trades. So I guess that's pretty much it from me and from us. Let's see how this first day of October goes and also the first quarter. And also, hopefully things are going to be good. I know Christmas is around the corner, but I'm sure we're going to finish this year strong. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow. So happy trading, guys, and God bless you all. See you tomorrow. May the pips be with you.